Well, hey there. My name is Paul Williams. We've put together some videos to better help with the what we call the Great Commission. Great Commission is very simple, found in Matthew 28. We are to go therefore into all nations, baptizing in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, making disciples. And then here's the piece this is all about. And teach them to obey all that I commanded you. And lo, I will be with you until the end of the age. Well, this series of videos is really meant to help you better understand what God is indeed trying to teach us. This morning, though, or this afternoon, whenever it is you're watching this, I want to start by trying to explain exactly what happened. If you're a child of God, you've surrendered your life to Him, what really happened there? And this is more to help you firm up, mainly that you understand what happened. Another possibility is you're just here looking, you're seeking, you want to find out what this is all about. This may be for you. But I want to share with you in just a few verses really what this salvation, what took place. So follow along with me in these verses. I'm going to share with you what happened. First thing, God is the one that drew you. If you were to look in John 6:44, it says, no one can come to me, speaking of Jesus, unless the Father who sent me draws him, and I will raise him up on that last day. That's John 6:44. God is the one that kind of reached out, grabbed you, and drew you to him. More detailed, what happens is God will open your heart so that you can understand the truth of what someone may be sharing with you. Clear example, in Acts 16:14, Paul wrote this. He said, a woman named Lydia from the city of Thyatira, a seller of purple fabrics, a worshiper of God, was listening, and the Lord opened her heart to respond to the things spoken by Paul. Paul was doing the preaching. Luke is the one that actually wrote the book of Acts. But this is a clear picture of Paul speaking to a crowd, God pulling her, drawing her, God opening her heart so that she could understand what was being said. Another point in this conversion process is that your eyes were open to your sad condition. I mean, I love when Jesus is teaching on the Sermon on the Mount, the very first beatitude is, blessed are those who are poor in spirit. And that's really a person who understands how wretched they are. But in the book of Isaiah chapter 6, verse 1, Isaiah experienced this. And let me read this to you. I think it's a beautiful picture of it. It says, in the year of King Uzziah, his death, I saw the Lord sitting on a throne, lofty and exalted, and the train of his robe filling the temple. Seraphim stood above him, each with having 6 wings. With 2 they covered their face, with 2 they covered their feet, and with 2 they flew. The third verse says, and one called out to another and said, holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. And the foundations of the thresholds trembled at the voice of him who called out. And while the temple was filled with smoke, Isaiah chapter 6, verse 5 says, and then I said, and these are words of Isaiah, woe is me, for I am ruined, because I am a man of unclean lips, and I live among a people of unclean lips, for my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. This is what happens when we recognize that we are indeed in the presence of holy God. We recognize we've got a real problem. We've got a sin problem, and it has to be dealt with. If we're going to have fellowship with the Father through the Son, that sin problem has got to be dealt with. The next thing after that, along your journey, you reach the point where you truly believe that Jesus is everything he claimed to be. And that's really the essence of the gospel, that we believe that Jesus is everything he claimed to be. Listen to this that we find in Luke 23, beginning in verse 40. This is a picture of the 2 thieves that are crucified on either side of Christ, and these last few words that are uttered by this one thief. Now, this guy has not lived a very good life. It's not like he's done anything great or good or at all. Here he is being killed for, we don't know exactly what, but we know he's been sentenced to death in a Roman court of law. Listen clearly to what's being said here. The other, speaking of the other thief, answered the first one, rebuking him, and said this, Hear these words clearly. Do you not even fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? And then in verse 41 it says, and we indeed are suffering justly, for we are receiving what we deserve for our deeds. But this man, speaking of Christ, has done nothing wrong. Listen clearly, friends. In these few words, this thief has uttered some profound statements. He says, do you not even fear God? He recognizes he is in the presence. This guy that's right between him and his buddy, this is the Son of God. And he knows that. He may not understand all the theology, but he knows he's in the presence of a holy God. And then he went on and said, we are indeed suffering justly, for we are receiving what we deserve for our deeds. That's confession of sins. He recognizes that we are being given the due punishment that we deserve. We have sinned. We have sinned against God. We've sinned against the Roman Empire, and we're getting what we deserve. And listen to this, friends, in verse 42. Here's the core. The thief says to Jesus, he says, remember me when you come in your kingdom. Wow. This man not only believes that he's in the presence of God, he not only believes he's being, dealing with the consequences of his sin justly, but now what he's saying here is profound. He's saying, Jesus, remember me when you come in your kingdom. I have no doubt he didn't quite understand what that really meant, other than the fact that he knew in his heart, he believed that Jesus was not going to die on that cross that day. He may die, but he's coming back to life, friends. And that's what that thief is admitting. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. He's also acknowledging that Jesus Christ has got the authority to do something about his sin condition. He's acknowledging the implication is very simple. Jesus, I know you're coming back. I know you're going to be on the throne. I know you're going to establish your kingdom. Please remember me. And what does Jesus say? This is powerful, my friends. He says, truly I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise. That thief was saved on the cross without doing anything other than believing and confessing with his mouth. Friends, it's not to say that when a person gets saved, there ought to be works coming out of that person. He should be striving. He should have such a grateful heart that he wants to serve God. But the real conditions for salvation is believing in your heart that Jesus is Lord and confessing with your mouth that God is indeed going to raise him from the dead. And then the last thing that you see, we find in Ephesians chapter 1, verse 13, this is the aftermath of it. And let me read this verse to you, 13 and 14. In him is Christ. In him you also, after listening to the message of truth, the gospel of your salvation, having also believed, you were sealed in him with the Holy Spirit of promise, who is given as a pledge of our inheritance with a view to the redemption of God's own possession, to the praise of his glory. When you believe in your heart and confess with your mouth, you're saved. I hope this makes it crystal clear to you. In the next video, we're going to talk about what changed. We're going to talk about what you can expect from God. And then we're going to talk about what God expects from you. God bless you. If you have any questions, reach out to the church, call the office, and let them know you've watched this video. I got a couple of questions. I'd like to discuss it with somebody. Take care. Bye-bye until next time.